All right, guys, welcome back on this early Saturday. Thanks to Makivia. Guys, blame Makivia. It's her fault that we have an early class on the Saturday. Boo. Anyway, um, we are back and we are at the end, right? We're getting ready to be at the end of chapter 1 of the FORTINET NSE4 security guide, security study guide, right? So last piece we need to go over, of course, is fundamental maintenance. And I'm sure you guys can tell, right? Looking at the big picture, right? This was truly an introduction to Fortinet, right? Fortinet FortiGates, right? Some of the high-level features, right? What the board looks like, what have you, set up decisions, right? Because again, like golden rule, I tell you guys, right? You are able to do anything on these devices, okay? Basic administration, right? We're getting ready to implement it in production or wherever you're going to go ahead and implement it within your lab, right? We talked about the different options you have, right? We talked about the built-in servers, right? We talked about DNS. We talked about a DHCP, right? We talked about the different flavors of DNS, right? Using recursive versus non-recursive, right? Versus a forwarder, right? We talked about the different options within DHCP. I'm sorry. And of course, how it is relatable to and close to what features Windows Server offers. Okay, and so last but not least, we're going to go over just fundamental maintenance, right? Things that we need to understand has an appliance that the FortiGate will operate as, both a virtual machine and of course hardware. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay. Some of the objectives we are going to go ahead and make sure that we tackle today, right, is 1, backup and restore system configuration files. Okay. 2, understand the restore requirements for plain text and encrypted configuration files. Okay. Identify the current firmware version. Okay. Upgrade firmware and downgrade firmware. Okay. All right. So after this section, you guys should know how to do all of these things, and maybe, not as an expert, but at least, you guys seen it before, you can emulate it within your own lab. Okay. So what is a configuration file, right? So like I just told you guys, we went through the entire section, right? And we know how to go ahead, and you guys know how to go ahead and configure basic network settings, right? You guys know how to configure administrative accounts, right? But what's the last thing we need to make sure we know how to do from a management standpoint, right? We need to understand how to manage our configuration, how to back up and how to restore, right? In addition to go ahead and setting peculiar things like a destination where to back up our file, there's some peculiar details that we can go ahead and set, right? Whether to encrypt the file or not, right? Or to just leave it unencrypted, okay? Whether we can go ahead and set a password on the configuration file, right? Along with the encryption, right? We can do a lot of things, right? So let's go ahead, right, and go through this, and we're going to go ahead and go to the Fortigate, right? Because I have a good treat for you guys today. We're not going to be playing with the VM today, a virtual machine. We're actually going to experiment on a real Fortigate. This is a 200E that I was gifted by a great friend. Okay, so let's talk about a configuration file, right? Backup and restore. So the configuration file can be saved to an external device. So you can plug in an external hard drive or a USB, right? It is optional if you want to encrypt that configuration file that you're backing up or not, right? You can set it to back up automatically or not, right? Using scripts or what have you. Right? You can say, hey, back up upon logout, right? But again, that feature is not available on all models, okay? So of course, to restore to a previous configuration file, right, you would go ahead and upload, right, a file, and of course, it would go ahead and reboot it, as always. Then you'll be back at the previous configuration, okay? Let's go ahead and hop in a FortiGate and see how that looks like. So gonna go ahead and hop in, right? And we are on a fresh, clean FortiGate 200E. Okay. So no configuration. I factory resetted it before we started, right? And what we want to do is go ahead and take a look at, look at the configuration files and look at how to back up and how to restore. So first, we're going to go to the top right. We're going to click on the admin button, right? And we're going to go to the section that says configuration, right? So we have plenty of options. We have backup, restore, revisions, and scripts. We're going to stick with backup for now, okay? So, right, it gives us the option to back up to a PC, right? It's gonna go ahead and just save it to the browser. Browser gonna save it to maybe our downloads folder if you're using Windows. If you're using MacBook, of course, your whatever destination you have set. If I click OK, as you guys see, it's gonna go ahead and save it right there, right? We do have the encryption option, right? We can go ahead and add a password. And we have that option as well. Okay. And if I try to open it, let's take a look. Should have some problems. There we go. And let me blow it up. Let me bring it over to that side for you guys. Okay. Give me 1 second. All right. All right. So here's where my two configuration files were stored, right? We got my first backup, we got my second backup. One's unencrypted, one's encrypted. So let's pull up the one that's unencrypted, plain text, right? So if we look at it here, right? Plain text. We can read it in English. Everything looks fine. Okay. The encrypted one, right? Since I'm using Notepad, right, it's going to just show, it's not going to prompt me for a password. It is just going to show me the encrypted version, right? Nothing, right? So there goes your option, right? So that's how that feature works, okay?
No, I had a question. Oh, you can go, Mike. Yeah.
We probably got the same question. Go ahead.
I don't know. I think I missed it though. With the when you download it, did you toggle on the encryption and it downloaded both files, like the unencrypted one and the encrypted one?
Good question. Let me go ahead and do it again. Right, so that is a toggle because this is an optional option.
Okay.
Okay. So if you leave it untoggled, right, it's going to back up unencrypted to your local PC. Or if you have a USB drive that's plugged into the USB drive slot, it's going to download to there unencrypted.
Okay.
You toggle the encryption part. It's going to give you the password part. You type in a password, you confirm it, hit OK. Then it's going to go ahead and download to your PC encrypted.
Okay. And does it do both copies? Because I think like the unencrypted version or it's just one or the other. Because I think you click. Okay.
Nope. So it's going to download one single file encrypted.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
This was an unencrypted copy.
Ah, you did too. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And I'll pull that up again so you guys can see it. So this was the encrypted copy. This is the unencrypted copy.
Okay, I have a question. So when we're uploading it like on the client side, so we plug it into the firewall or however we're uploading the encryption, and we're supposed to be prompted, like, how are we console cabled in, or like how are we prompted to de-encrypt the like type in the password? You know
so
what I mean?
we haven't got to uploading yet.
Oops, my bad. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right.
Sorry.
It's okay. Oh, it's good. It's good. It's all good. All right. So a couple of things I want to point out. All right. Let's go ahead and go to the top. All right. right? So we have a configuration file, right? And if we take a look, let me go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint. I think this will be easier, right? One thing you guys will start to get to notice if you work with a lot of FortiGates, right? You'll be able to tell, a lot of things about the FortiGate that you're working on, right? If you're reading that first line of text, it's going to show you the model, right? FortiGate VN, right? Of course, the one that we're working on, pull that up, right? Let's zoom in. Let me see. There we go, right? It shows me FortiGate 200E, right? My Kiwi and Donovan can go ahead and see that, right? We can also see the firmware version, right? Right? And we can also see the build number, right? Okay, so that's one thing that you'll see on the exam, to where they'll go ahead and, probably prompt you, right? Of, hey, what build is this, right? What firmware version is this? You're going to have to know how to tell just by looking at a configuration file.
Noted.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. I didn't
Okay.
even know that was there, and out of all the files that I've looked at, I didn't even know that was at the top, to be honest.
Oh yeah, it's all good. It's all good, right? So with this configuration file, right? A couple of things you guys need to understand whenever you do backups, right? It's only going to back up the default and important settings, right? It's not going to have everything, right? And of course, Don, and my Kiwi, thanks for asking. Restoring a configuration, right? If you encrypt it, one rule of thumb you have to understand, it needs to be, let's say you're backing up FortiGate, right? Because that FortiGate is about to die and you're switching it to a new FortiGate. It has to be the same device, same type of device and model. Here's what I mean. You can't back up a 200E and upload that configuration to a 200F.
Oh, really? Okay. Is this only for encrypted, or is this just in general?
Why I
This
didn't
is
know.
this is in
Oh my
general.
God. I
Oh,
did not know that.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
I probably would have tried to do that on the call.
Oh my God. I'm saying, friend. I'm saying, oh my God, I did not know that. Whoops.
Okay. All right. So same device, same model, right? For encrypted, it has to be the same build, right? So if you guys encrypt the files, it just has to be the same build. If you're switching it, if it's unencrypted, and let me do this so it can make sense. So we have a 200E and a 200F, right? You guys have that for a client, all right? So how can I make this easy? Give me 1 second. So with this, because I don't want to confuse you guys, let me highlight this, right? 200F and a 200E, unencrypted, right? Configuration files, right? Let's say you try to pull it from the 200E and you're trying to just, move that configuration to a 200F, right? Unencrypted, right? It is not going to work, right? That configuration file upload is not going to work. Now, 200E to a 200E, unencrypted, no matter if it's different code versions or not, that's installed on there. You can upload it. Meaning if you have, if you're pulling from 7.0 and you're going to upload it to, maybe you're going to upload it to 200E that's running 6.4.8. You can upload it unencrypted. But if you encrypt the configuration file and you're moving from a 200E to a 200E, it has to be the same model, okay? But it also has to only be the same device. You can't move to another 200E. It can only go back on that same device. Okay.
I think I have a question.
Yes.
So let me try to get this right in my head. Say if you have someone that's going through like a network redesign and they're downsizing their environment from like a 200E to like, a much
ADF.
smaller firewall.
Yeah.
Do you have to like reconfigure that like firewall? It's just because it's they're downsizing. Like, well, I guess I'm thinking too far ahead. I don't know if you're going to cover that.
No, this is a question just for this, right? So,
okay,
and please stop me as I try to reinterpret your question. So you're saying that you have a client, you have a customer that comes to you and says, "Hey, we're doing a environment refresh. We're downsizing from we don't need a that much powerful hardware. We're going to go ahead and move from a 200E, 200F to a ADF, right? So you're asking if that configuration file can be pulled from a 200F and be brought down to an ADF.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. If you're pretty much downsizing the environment and they want to pretty much will you be able to use a backup from a firewall, or would you have to like do that again?
No, good question. Good question. So remember the rules, right? For restoring configuration and uploading configuration. Same model. Both encrypted and unencrypted. The base of both of those has to be the same model. If it's not the same model, you can upload it. You can't upload a configuration file from a 200F to an ADF. Now,
Gotcha. Okay.
Here's what you can do, right? The lovely thing about Fortinet is they care about their customers. So this is where FortiConverter will come in. Okay? So you can go ahead and pull in that configuration from a 200F, put it in FortiConverter. It'll go ahead and convert that configuration, say, hey, I'm trying to convert it to a FortiOS, right? And it'll make a plain blank configuration, not reference the config version or anything like that. It'll just say, hey, this is what they have. Here's the address objects. Here's the addresses. Here is the IPsec tunnel interfaces. Let's reference that. Here's the SSL VPN stuff, right? FortiConverter will take care of that for you. Then you'll have that configuration, and then you can upload it to the ADF. Right? But of course, FortiConverter is a paid service, paid software, right? Then of course you guys have to purchase. But if you don't have the option for FortiConverter, unfortunately, yes, by hand you would have to do the entire configuration again.
Okay, gotcha.
Another option that you do have is FortiManager, right? You can go ahead and create a template based off of the 200F, right? Pull that down and go ahead and make it ready for ADF, right? Or a different model or something like that, okay? So you have plenty of options.
Yeah, gotcha.
Worst case scenario, of course, is the by hand one, okay?
Yep, understood. All right, thanks for that.
No problem. No problem. Let's keep going. Any questions before we move on? Okay. All right. So upgrading firmware, right? You can view the current firmware version on the dashboard or in system firmware, section of the firewall, right? Or in the CLI, right? Typing in the command get system status. You guys saw that on the first day. Okay. And we'll do it again today, right? If there's an updated firmware version, right? You have connection to the internet, you have a live connection to FortiGuard servers. You will be notified as soon as you log in. It'll say, hey, you have one available, or and you'll also be notified whenever you go to the firmware section of your firewall. You'll be notified. Okay, as you guys see in the screenshot, right? It'll say, "Hey, this firmware is available." Okay. The firmware, of course, can be updated by clicking the Upload Firmware or selecting the Upgrade option section. Okay. If I want to make this, give you guys a nugget. I know Fortinet puts it here. You probably won't be testing on this a lot, but I like to tell people, please read the release notes, right? Before you upgrade, it's not as simple as just, oh, there's a vulnerability, right? Or we need to go ahead and upgrade and get the latest software. Let's go ahead and upload it. Read the release notes. Understand what's going to be different on your operating system. Okay. Not doing that, right? You can be blindsided by of how the OS is built, how it operates, and worst case scenario, how it handles, traffic or what have you, right? Maybe firewall policies is moved differently as soon as you go ahead and upload it, and then maybe you'll have unforeseen events happen as far as when it's put back into production. So read the release notes, make sure nothing is being drastically changed, right? So everything will go back to normal right after a upgrade. Okay. So let's go ahead and do an upgrade. All right. So let's go back to our firewall. All right. As a reminder, I'm on a 200E. Okay. And I want to go ahead and upgrade it. So we're going to go to firmware, right? We're on 7.0.0, right? You guys' exam is going to be a 7.0.0 exam, okay? So I had to make sure that I did get a firewall in this code version, right? So gives us the option to upload the firmware, right? Or of course, to get it from FortiGate, all right? I do not have a connection or subscription to FortiGate, so I won't have this option. So I went ahead and downloaded that firmware, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go to my PC's options, and I'm going to find the next code up, right?
And where did you find that that download? Did you just are you able to just Google the Fortinet 7.0 download the firmware and download it from Google or something?
Sure, good question. So you actually need a Fortinet account.
Okay.
Okay. And I can actually show you that, right? Give me 1 second. All right. So you can go ahead and log into your Fortinet account. All right. First things first, I like to tell everybody is search what code you're on now per your box. Okay. I'm on 200E. You select the code version you're on, right? And you decide what code you want to go to, right? Let's say I want to go to 7.0.10. Okay. If I hit go, it's going to tell me, hey, here are the steps that you have to take to go ahead and get to your destination code, which is 7.0.10,
Oh, wow.
right? You always want to make sure you do this before you do anything, okay? Upgrading from 7.0.10, right? 7.0.0, I'm sorry, to 7.0.10, right? Maybe you skip this upgrade path, recommendation, what have you. You can possibly brick your device.
Oh, okay. So just for further clarification, you have to download those. You have to do it each one individual. You can't just go from download the 7.0.10. You have to do 7.0.7, 7.0.9. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. And of course, to go ahead and download it, once you confirm that, right? I went ahead and did a screenshot. That's what I like to do. I would go ahead and go to downloads, right? And I'm going to go to downloads. And I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, I'm looking for 7.0. I'm going to go to the v7.00. And of course, I'm saying in the 7.0 train, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click that, right? And per my screenshot, it's telling me I first need to go to 7.0.7, right? Let me zoom in, right, so you guys can actually see, right? So I want to go to 7.0.7. So I'm looking for 7.0.7. I'm going to go ahead and click on this folder, right? And you see it's a whole bunch of, 7.0.7 codes, right? How do you tell the difference, right? Right here, right, is where you would go ahead and look for your model, right? Your device and your model, okay? So it's going to say FGT underscore, then your model, okay? So we're looking for a 200E, right? Boom, we see a 200E, right? And then you would go ahead and come all the way right here and click on HTTP, right? That will go ahead and force a download to your PC, okay? After you do that, right, I like to go ahead and it should give the option. You can go ahead and confirm the checksum, right? Of course, SHA-512 is a little bit more secure. You can do the MD5 check as well, right? Make sure, make sure nothing happened to that. That's not a weird file, right? That I like to call. And then upload it to your box. Okay. So we went ahead and downloaded it. We got our file. Okay. So now let's go ahead and upgrade our Fortinet. Okay. So let's click on Browse. And we're going to look for our 7.0.7 file. So we found it. We're going to click Open, right? And you're gonna get right, probably a error message if it's not connected to the network. If it is, you'll still get this message, right? And this message will pop up in the case of you don't have a connection to FortiGuard, right? Maybe networking is not set yet on the FortiGate, just like this one, or it just can't reach it, right? You maybe have networking set up. You're still gonna go ahead and get this message, right? As long as you understand, right, you have your screenshot, right, that says, hey, here's an upgrade path. If you have everything that you need, you cross your you cross your T's and you dot your I's, you're all good, right? So what will happen is, right, you click, it's going to show you backup config and upgrade, right? This is going to go ahead and upgrade your device. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, right? And it's going to tell me upgrading the firmware will cause the system to reboot. Are you sure you want to continue? I'm going to click on continue, right? Automatically, it's going to go ahead and back up my configuration. Okay. Now you guys are probably thinking, does it back up the configuration encrypted or unencrypted? Right? Let's take a look while it's doing its job. There we go. What do you guys see? Is it encrypted or unencrypted?
Unencrypted.
There we go.
And I have
So,
a firmware whenever you're done.
say it again.
I have a question regarding firmware upgrades whenever you're done.
Okay. You can ask it, right? It's going to be, probably another couple of seconds.
It's kind of regarding firmwares in general. So I guess my specific question is more so for like firmwares for FortiAPs and just like how to process firmware. So I can't jump from a 6.2 version to a 7.0 version in any type of FortiOS firmware. So that could be APs as well, access points.
Absolutely, right.
That
Now
could be a reason why it doesn't, I guess, work if I'm
well,
trying to
there's
6.2 firmware to 7.0. Okay.
right, and don't so much focus on the number, right? It all depends on what's supported, right? Because it's software developers that are creating this, right? And so if you go to your vendor, right, no matter if it's Fortinet or not, and you see, hey, what's supported, right? There's some instances where I've seen, right, my history of working with Fortinet, to where you can jump, major builds, major trains too, without doing multiple upgrades.
Oh, okay, right. So it just depends,
It
basically.
all depends. Yeah, it's not static, right? It's only this way. It all depends. Depends on the situation.
Alrighty.
Okay. All right. And while we just still wait, oh, that was quick. While we wait, any questions so far?
Nope,
Okay.
very thorough.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, just to reconfirm, we can't jump firmware upgrades. We have to process it for the most part.
It depends. Right? I want you to get out of the thought process of thinking that's the only answer, right?
Okay.
In engineering and anything, right? Nothing, there's not only just one answer, right? There's not even a lot of general answers, right? It depends. Every situation is different, okay?
Alrighty.
So just keep your mind flexible on that. So we upgraded, right? Let's go ahead and do some confirmations, right? So as soon as we log in, we're brought to the dashboard, the status dashboard, and we can see that we're at 7.0.7, right? But maybe Donovan he's a CLI guy, right? Maybe he doesn't feel he's connected to the console port, right? And he doesn't feel like logging into the GUI, right? We can go ahead and log into the CLI, right? And check the firmware here, right? And so remember that, that CLI command that we did the first day, right? To go ahead and get some information about the device is get system status, right? And we'll see that first line is going to tell us the version, right? Right, 7.0.7, the build, right? And we can go ahead and confirm it here. So that will tell us, right, that it successfully upgraded to the new code, right? Let's do another one, right? Because again, our goal is 7.0.10. So we're going to upgrade again. Same thing, right? And you see it looks a little bit different here, right? So it changed, right? So it's telling us the firmware version, telling us the latest, okay? Giving us all upgrades, right? No upgrades available. All downgrades, no downgrades available, right? And of course, there is upgrades and downgrades available, right? But without a connection to FortiGuard, we won't see that, right? This is where we can manually come in, right? And start doing some things of our own, right? So I want to go ahead and upgrade for that screenshot. I need to go to 7.0.9 next, okay? So I'm going to upload that. There we go. Same thing, right? It's going to go ahead and ask me, upgrading the firmware will cause the system to reboot. Are you sure you want to continue? I'm going to say continue, right? It's going to back up that configuration file, right? And go ahead and upload that image, okay?
Now, to make sure I'm following this correctly, the reason why it can be a different bill is because it's not encrypted, right?
Say it again.
The reason why this can be a different bill that we're uploading is because it's not encrypted.
Absolutely.
Did I understand that? Okay.
And while we wait, just to give you guys some, situations to think in your mind, probably when you'll use encrypted and unencrypted, right? Encrypted, right? Encrypted, you want to think of that as maybe you're in a air-gapped environment, right? Maybe you work for the government or what have you, and you guys are securing your configurations on site, right? Secured USB solutions or what have you, where the USB has a password on it, right? You want to go ahead and encrypt it for that device that you guys have, right? Maybe you guys have a 400F or something like that, right? You go ahead and encrypt that, right? And you put it in a box for the 400F, right? Okay. And so, of course, you guys have set weekly backups or what have you to that USB, right? Encrypted. Okay. Right. Something happens, somebody makes a change by accident that works at the knock. You would say, no problem. We have a encrypted, right, backup on this USB. That's when you would use the encrypted option. Okay. That's when you would use it. Anything else? Unencrypted.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
It does.
Okay, so let's log back in. All right. Let's go to the dashboard. Boom. We're at 7.0.9. Okay. Okay. All right. So we did some upgrades, right? You guys are getting used to it, right? But, right, what if we did everything that we needed to do? We read the release notes, the vendor, right? They let us know, hey, upgrade to this new code, et cetera, right? You have a vulnerability, there's a vulnerability out, there's this, that, and the third, right? Everything is not static. Things can change, right? And so there may be a reason to where it affects your environment, your customer's environment, right? And the code just doesn't work as expected. The upgrade isn't as successful as we thought. And so you may need to go ahead and downgrade, right? So there's a couple of things that you need to do for the downgrade process. Step one, get the pre-upgrade configuration file. Step two, download a copy of the current firmware in case you need to revert, all right? Have physical access. Let me say that again. Have physical access, right, to the console port, okay? You need to, any upgrades, I suggest to everybody, please do not do it remote. This is free game outside of the NSE4. Please don't do upgrades remote. If you like sleep, please don't do it. Okay? Read the release notes. Does the downgrade preserve the configuration? Right? So what I was telling you guys about going from one device and model to another, right? You also have to worry about going from one build down to a previous build, right? Because the configuration can change. So make sure you read the release notes and see if they added maybe a few features, right? That may change or have effects to other features that are already pre-installed, right? Or already there, right? Once you do all that, right, you do your due diligence, then go ahead and downgrade the firmware. Okay? And of course, if required, upload the configuration that matches the firmware version. Okay? So let's go ahead and process that downgrade. All right? So we're on 7.0.9. I'm going to first back up that configuration. Okay? Unencrypted. Now, Don, what's that rule for unencrypted? if I'm going from 7.0.9 to 7.0.7, can I still use that same configuration file unencrypted? All right, Don's probably busy. Mykevia.
No, you can't use the same configuration file. If it's unencrypted, you said?
Unencrypted.
Oh, no, you can.
Okay. Why can't I?
Because it's not encrypted.
Close. Close.
Hold on, wait. You said why we can upload an unencrypted file?
Right. So let me give you the scenario, right? So we're using a 200E. We're on the same device.
Okay.
We're on the same device, right? And I'm trying to upload, previous configuration, what have you. But of course, I'm changing code. Okay. Why am I able to use an unconfigured, unencrypted configuration file on that same box?
It's the same model.
There we go.
Oh, I don't know why I was thinking so hard about that.
Okay. All right. So I backed up my config. All right. Go ahead and do it again, just to be safe. Right. And I'm going to go to System, Firmware, File Upload. All right. And I am going to upload 7.0.7. All right. Of course, it's going to tell me this: the mature level of the current installed firmware version is different than the feature level of the firmware version selected, right? Basically telling me that, hey, this build is a newer build, right? Has different features. You're moving down. Some features are going to be removed. Okay. I say confirm and backup. It's telling me the same thing, making sure, and it's making sure it's telling me that, hey, use caution, right? It may impact production. All right, same thing I told you guys. So I'm going to confirm switch to mature, to the mature version. I'm going to click continue, and we're going to go ahead and process the downgrade, right? So the FortiGate knows, hey, he's downgrading, right? He's not upgrading, he's downgrading to a previous version. So we're going to wait for that reboot, make sure it processes it, and we'll be good to go. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Yeah. These downgrades and upgrades typically don't take long. FortiGate is typically good with it. One rule of thumb is I like to go ahead and have my CLI, my console cable also plugged in while the GUI is working, just so I can make sure, like, all right, are we working? We're good. Anything happening? Right? And we see a few things in the CLI, right? It's telling us, hey, firmware downgrade is in progress. It's done. Now I'm going to go ahead and reboot. Hey, David, go ahead and wait while I reboot the system. It's going to go ahead and restart, right? It's keeping me updated, right? Reboots, tells me a few things, tell me the serial number, right? Different CPUs, right? Going through the post process for those people that took the CompTIA Plus, right? Knows about the post process. So we go through the post, test a few things, and then, right, it's going to tell me other few things. It's going to tell me some errors, right? Config file may contain errors, right? It's going to tell me, hey, check a few things whenever this boots back up. So this is why I like to go ahead and have a console port, because again, the GUI is not going to tell you all of these things. Going back to my golden rule of some things are available in the GUI, right? And some things are not available in the GUI. that'll be available in the CLI and vice versa. Okay, so let's log back in. We get in. All right. We go to our dashboard. Okay, and we can go ahead and confirm that we've successfully downgraded. Right, we're on 7.0.7. Right, but we came from 7.0.0. Right, so let's make sure we go all the way back. Right, for our customer, because we want to make sure that we put everything back to where it was. Right, so we're going to do a backup. Right, process that. Then we're going to go ahead and process that downgrade. We're going to go to system. We're going to go to firmware. We're going to go to file upload. Right, we already went to support.fortinet.com and we downloaded our code. Right, and we are going to go ahead and let me switch to date modified. Give me 1 second. And this is the wrong code. Let me go ahead and download the right code. Oh. $200. There we go. All right. Let's give it a few seconds. It'll go ahead and download. All right. Let it process. Okay. All right. Boom. All right. So it's ready. So we have 7.0.0. That's what we're looking for. That's where we started. Confirm and backup config. Read the text. Letting us know downgrading to an older firmware version may result in the loss of some configuration and unpredictable system performance, right? It's letting you know, right? There may be a change. Just be warned, right? Are you sure you want to continue? You click continue. All right. Right. And we go to our CLI, right? Of course, it's uploading the image. Okay. And we see it here, right? You can just put it side by side. Okay. Right, it's telling us the system is rebooting, right? We can see it side by side, it processing, right? So we go ahead and wait. While we wait, any questions, right? Right, we're almost at the end of section 1, right? Which went over a lot of system management features. Any questions?
None for me.
Okay.
You're very thorough. Like I see where you're at.
Don, I'm sorry. Say it again.
Saying you're very thorough. I see where you're at in life. I mean, the way you're breaking it down.
Did anybody hear that, or
I'm not sure.
Is that just me?
No, he's breaking up a little bit.
Okay. All right. I thought that was just me.
Yeah, Donovan, your phone's breaking up. But no, this was very good, very thorough. Because we just went through an upgrade and downgrade process. So
because when it's working, right, we don't get things. But if it's not working, oh man, man, we have to turn into the Justice League. All right. Right. So it's going through the same thing. It's processing, right? Still uploading. Good to go, right? And of course, the scenario that we created, right, is of course we're downgrading for a customer because of course it had some unforeseen, performance issues, right? So we're downgrading, right? This is my Kivia or Donovan processing that downgrade, right? And we go ahead and log in. Okay. And if we go to status, we can see my Kivia Donovan successfully downgraded to 7.0.0, back to the original version that their customer was on, right? And of course, you guys would go back, do your research for the customer, release notes, probably open up a ticket with Fortinet and say, hey, you guys are doing bad, fix it, right? So that is the upgrade and downgrade process, okay? And you guys have completed section 1 of the NSE4 security study guide, okay? Right, before we end, we need to, of course, as always, do a knowledge check, right? Quiz questions, right? So I'm going to ask you question 1, all right? And of course, I'll read off the answers. It's either going to be A or B, all right? So when restoring an encrypted system configuration file, in addition to needing the Fortigate model and firmware version from the time the configuration file was produced, what must you also provide? Is it A, the password to decrypt the file, or is it B, the private decryption key to decrypt the file?
The password, A.
There we go. All right. Question 2. Which document should you consult to increase the chances of success before upgrading or downgrading firmware? Is it A, the Fortinet cookbook, or is it B, Fortinet release notes? Fortinet release notes, I'm sorry.
B, release notes.
Release notes? Okay. All right. Well, guys, you finished section 1 in the first week. How you guys feel?
Good. This is good. A good overview of,